If a little green is good, more is even better. Now, back to Green is Good with John Shigarian and Mike Brady.
Welcome back to Green is Good, and we're so excited and honored today to have Jayni Chase on the line with us. She has worked to advance environmental education for over 22 years, and she is right now spearheading two ambitious green school initiatives. Green community schools, creating model green schools in our cities, and energy-efficient schools in a partnership with National Wildlife Federation and Serious Materials. Welcome to Green is Good, Jayni Chase.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Hey, Jayni, 22 years, you have been doing this way longer than it was ever cool to be green and all the social political times that we live in now. 22, what made you get involved 22 years ago to start greening schools?
Well, I think it's a combination of things that led me to it. Chevy and I had our first daughter in 1983. And with that came this whole new world of being a mom, which means you're with other moms with babies and going in and out of houses and to parties and gatherings and whatnot. And I became really acutely aware of how other women were running their homes, and it was very different from how I grew up. My father was a child of the Depression, and everything we used, we were sort of taught to think about it. What are you going? How are you best going to do this with creating the least amount of waste?
Right.
And I didn't see that happening in other homes, and I didn't jump to, oh my gosh, what's wrong with these people? I realized immediately it's our culture here in the U.S. And then I had also been very aware of 50 simple things you can do to save the planet. I don't know what year that came out, but it was in the 70s.
Right.
And I had my copy of it, and was I just had that awareness. I was always looking through that lens, and I realized I'm married to Chevy, and I could potentially affect some change and be have some influence in some way. And instead of lecturing or trying to change the way people were doing things in their homes, I thought the best thing is to start with the kids, go to our schools, and try to change the next generation, because they will affect the future generations, and they'll also affect the present, adults that they're living with.
Well, Jayni, as you took it to the schools, I'm sure that you and Chevy within your own household, and with your first daughter, began passing on actually a family tradition which you had gotten from your father. And like my father, like John's father, there's a whole generation of people that were raised by parents who remember the Depression. And it was before the post-World War II, the pre-consumer society, where it's like, use it up before it's all gone. It was use it until it is gone. Reuse what you have. So my question would be, did you and Chevy start with your own daughter and begin at home before you took it to the schools?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And, a lot of the way I do things, Chevy just falls right in sync with, but some things he makes fun of me. So all the saving and reusing, and I won't throw things away. I have to give them away, and I have to try to find the right place to give them, and so he'll definitely give me a lot of flack about some of it. He has fun with it, though.
Yeah, that is comedy gold.
Yeah, definitely, and all the different bins, and and I'm constantly improving the system and adding, like, I can get junk plastic. I found a place to send junk plastic now, and so I'm going to have another bin for that. And don't put that plastic with that plastic. And
that's great. That is so great.
And also, our family, I've used them as guinea pigs, because we have been able to afford the kind of expensive, cutting-edge technology things, i.e., not really very good products sometimes that were coming on the market that were more energy efficient or whatever. I know I bought some a refrigerator and a freezer once from a company that shall remain unnamed, and it was a pretty nightmare and very costly experience. But anyway, the family has suffered through it and kept our sense of humor while we've done that.
Well, that's important to reach any goal. That's what you have to do, and that's a great, that's just an honest comment. Talk a little bit about environmental education, the importance of that, and how you're integrating that into your green school movement.
Well, it's so kids are sponges, little kids,
right?
And they are just dying to know. They also have a fascination and curiosity that is especially attuned to things like animals and bugs and reptiles and all those sorts of things. But none of those creatures are going to be able to survive if we are taking away their habitat and their food sources and their the little ecosystems that they need to survive. When you explain that to young kids, they get it, and it's just such a wonderful place to begin. Although I have to admit, as our children have gotten older and they're now in their 20s, I'm much more focused on high schools. And my thinking there is the minute that any of us step off our high school campus for the last time, we're not in learning mode anymore. We're in what am I going to do? What am I going to be mode? It's very different. Even if we're going to college, even if we're going to trade school, we're going to get a job, whatever it is, we're not really in that learning mode, and we're out of the system. We're gone. So I want to try to catch kids, young adults, before they stop learning. And I don't mean that they're,
right.
Just in general. I mean, we all learn every day, but in that formal educational system. And it just makes sense to me inside, in the curricula. The idea of teaching a history lesson without taking into account what was happening, what we human beings were doing to our environment is kind of ridiculous at this point.
No, we agree. And for all of you who just tuned in, we've got the wonderful Jayni Chase on the line with us today, and we're talking about greening our schools. And if you want to read more about what Jayni's working on, and for 22 years, actually, what she's been working on, please go to www.greencommunityschools.org. Jayni, we talked at the top of the show as we discussed your great work, green community schools and energy-efficient schools. Can you break that down for us and explain the different paths both of those are taken, but the highlight importance of both of those projects you've initiated?
Yes, happily. Well, Green Community Schools grew out of my own experiences, way back when I would go into a school and help them set up a recycling system, or, just give a chat about here are some things, or talk about zero-waste lunches and help them kick off a zero-waste lunch campaign and those kinds of concepts. And then I'd go home and sort of pat myself on the back and say, hey, I greened that school, which a lot of people were doing. But ultimately, you could circle back and check with those schools in 2, 3, 5 years, and a lot of the systems that may have been put in place are broken down.
Gotcha.
So what that means is it's not about people who, whatever passions and knowledge that they have to share, going into schools and telling the school community what to do and how to do it. It's really about the school community being in the driver's seat and driving the change. And that's how we've modeled Green Community Schools. We go into one school in a city and we place a resource coordinator who is really a community organizer to organize that community via surveys. So we've created these surveys that make everyone sort of think, whether you're a student, a parent, a teacher, administration, and someone who lives in the neighborhood, a community member who's concerned about what's going on in your community. Hopefully we find you and we survey you. What do you think is happening here in your neighborhood? What can be done better? And by the questions can also give ideas and also make people aware and think, oh, I hadn't really thought about that. Then we synthesize the information and sit down at the table with representatives and say, here's what your community as a whole is saying is needed. And then we try to bring in the resources that can help affect the changes that are being pointed out, that, fill in the holes and bring in support for all efforts that may have already begun so they can thrive. And this is a 3 to 5 year commitment that we pay the salary of this one person. It's huge. We have one pilot up and running. We've been going since the end of January, and it's unbelievable what's already happened. And then the Energy Efficient Schools Initiative is a partnership with National Wildlife Federation. They've got some really talented staff that has been writing curricula, really good curriculum pieces, and know how to do it without putting in, sometimes I'm concerned about corporate-generated curricula that gets into our schools. But NWF is just a fantastic, huge organization, very, very good people. So the idea there is to replace the windows, upgrade the lighting to smart lighting. So you do that not by replacing the fixture or the bulb, but the ballast, and placing monitors on the walls in classrooms in 500 schools over 2 years. And we're trying to hit the colder climates, so this is not necessarily going to happen here in California, because we can have 30 to 70% energy savings immediately.
Wow.
So that means that the money that we need to find, whether it's through the government or it's through private loans, can be paid back in sometimes 3 to 7 years, 3 to 10 years. In the colder climates, we have windows, like a regular wall is an R value 10. Most of our windows are 1 or 2. Like a double pane, we're using 19th century technology with our double pane windows. But there is technology. Serious Materials, which is our other partner,
Right.
has the most technologically advanced energy-efficient windows on the planet. That's what they manufacture. So if we put their windows in, they go up to R value 14, R value 17. But if we just put in R value 5 or 6, even in these colder climates, these classrooms, the indoor quality will completely change.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it is. The kids right now are sitting by the windows in their parkas and away from the windows in their T-shirts, fanning themselves. I mean, it's insane. We have the technology so that we can make our kids more comfortable. And the electricity, they'll go in and out of classrooms with the lights on all day. The sun comes up, shines in the windows, and the smart lighting will dim down automatically.
Wow.
Instead of giving the kids glare from their papers. So, there's so many benefits, and it makes so much sense to make these changes. And when you put monitors on the walls, the kids can visually see, turn on the lights, boom, look at the energy we use. Let's get them off. Let's stop.
Jayni, you've done so much, and I just want to share with our listeners because, I could spend the rest of our show just reading all of the accolades and all the awards you've won, but something also very important that they should know about you. You founded the Center for Environmental Education in 1988, and which is a vital resource for educators around the world. And for people who want to learn more about it, they should go to www.ceeonline.org, ceeonline.org. What is your ultimate goal with your two new initiatives, which are just amazing? And as you say, shame on us as a country for being so far behind. And also with your Center for Environmental Education, what is your ultimate goal, and how can our listeners out there that are so inclined help you reach that goal? And how can they help you reach it by getting more involved in the community, or can they help with fundraising, or what other things can the people out there be? They all want to become part of the solution, and you're an amazing leader. How do we help you reach the goals, and what are the goals?
Well, what I believe very strongly, and when I was growing up, I think everyone felt this way, that our schools are the hearts of our communities. That's where we're sending our babies to learn. it's really important that everybody gets involved, whether you have a kid in the local school or not. Call up the school and let them know you're there, and tell them that you'd like to get involved. I mean, every one of our schools should have a garden. If your local school doesn't have a garden and you know about gardening, offer your services and try to help them get excited about it. Bring other people that you know on board. Everybody knows everybody that knows something about something, and if we all reach out to one another and work together, anything is possible. Everything is possible. Gotcha. So that would be my number one thing. And for my own work, right. I'd love it if more people would visit and join Green Community Schools, our website, follow what we're doing. We just announced that our second model school is going to be in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and we have a lot of other cities sort of in the wings. I've met with some mayors, some school superintendents, all kinds of people. I've talked to senators, governors, wow. And a lot of people are interested. And I think also I've just been asked to join as a founding member the board of advisors for the Center for Green Schools at USGBC, wow. Which is huge because USGBC, the U.S. Green Building Council, is what does the LEED certification.
Sure.
Okay, so they've become a massive, and I say that in all the positive ways.
Right,
it's
right.
All good. They are incredible, incredible people. Rick Fedrizzi is one of the founders. He's the chair and president, and he is just on fire. And his staff, he has attracted the most amazing staff, bright, creative people, and he's letting them rip, and they are coming up with the most amazing things. Rachel Gutter is the director of the Center for Green Schools, and she's a super dynamic, amazing young woman, and they are greening school. They have an initiative to place fellows in school districts, and they already have like 33 school districts, and those fellows will be all about greening the schools, sustainability. And I'm hoping to sort of grab onto their shirt tails and put a green community school in all the districts that they do with their fellows program. And then we have these parallel individuals, and it's amazing what you can do with one person.
It's true.
When you so if you have one person at the district level, one person showing up to work at a school, and they're working and collaborating together, everything can really just start working. So I strongly suggest that people also support the USGBC as well.
Do you feel that it's reasonable that all schools across America can eventually become energy efficient? How do we get, when you look at what you're doing, how do you make goals for yourself and your organization, and what's possible really in terms of making our schools more energy efficient?
I think absolutely it's not only possible, but we have to do it.
Okay.
It has to be done. And those people that are already, listening to this show
sure.
are already there, and we all have to keep leading by example, by what we do, and keep raising awareness, talking about it, talk about it all the time. And, that's the way we're going to get there. It has to be a cultural shift in this country. We are, as everyone knows, not everyone, but those of the people that are listening, right. I'm sure already know that we use 25% of the world's energy on a daily basis, and we're 5% of the world's population. And so sometimes those numbers fluctuate a little bit, but it's really not okay. It's not okay that we continue on person to person to person using the energy the way we use it here. We don't have to. We can still have fabulous lives and not use so much energy.
Speaking of energy and also the greening of schools, how does your initiatives, and great initiatives, let us say, how do they interplay with the recent phenomena of environmental charter schools that we see propping up around the country, some of who have been on our show already? How does that interplay with what you're doing, and is there a merging of minds and that creates more velocity for the movement?
I think it absolutely creates more velocity, and they're laying the groundwork and making the connections and building that movement. A lot of the resources that we've been able to bring into the Al Raby School in Chicago, which is our first pilot school,
sure,
are already in place because there's been charter school support. That they've already been doing good work in charter schools. And those charter schools are really important. I personally am not really going to work too much in charter schools. I made that decision about 3 years ago.
Okay.
I had been really focused on independent and charter schools early on when
Right.
I first started the Center for Environmental Education.
Right.
But I believe at this point there are enough people out there that's already going. They don't really need me as much as the public schools do.
Gotcha. And that makes a lot of sense. You're going to where the greatest need is.
Yeah. I want the broken down, underserved neighborhoods with the kids that aren't getting what they should be getting. Because how can we complain about, all this crime and, these people that are homeless that don't have a job? We're not helping them. If we help them while they're young, they're going to take care of themselves for the rest of their lives. So if we put our dollars and we put our energy and we put our hearts into our schools, then all the problems with, increasing social costs and healthcare costs. I mean, right now we're killing our kids by feeding them crap food. I'm sorry if you have to bleat that out. But in our schools, we're feeding them fat and sugar.
Yep.
And we're teaching them, and that's validated. This is if you go to school and that's what you get fed, well, of course it's okay to eat it. Well, it's not okay. Right. It really isn't. And school and food, I'm really glad I thought of this, is huge. It contributes in a very big way to our carbon footprints. What we're doing to the planet, what we're eating is having a huge effect. And kids, not nobody, but there's so many people who don't understand that. And why? Because no one's taken the time to explain it. So let's teach our kids now in the schools so that's part of the fabric of who they are for the rest of their lives.
That's brilliant, Jayni, because the truth is our show is all about sustainability, people, planet, and profits. And so you bring up just another great leg. If we're not going to take care of the people, our children, our most precious resources that are only mimicking what we teach them or only following whatever rules we've created, we've got no hope anyway. So I think that's a brilliant point, and I'm so glad you made that clear. That is great. I want to read this, though. I picked this up somewhere from, you've written this before. I'm not sure where you've written this or said this, but this is important that our listeners hear this. And again, for those who just tuned in, we've got Jayni Chase on the phone with us from California today. And Jayni does amazing work for over 22 years in the greening of schools across America. And I just want to read this out loud here. The rate at which we're plundering the Earth's natural resources is not sustainable, but there are solutions. It's my mission to help educators become aware of the consequences, the solutions, and all that comes in between so that they can guide their students towards environmental literacy today and beyond. It's imperative that we help our youth make the connections between our choices and the stresses we're putting on the natural resources and therefore ourselves. And we must help them find ways to lead us out of this mess through transformational change to a massive, meaningful cultural shift. Jayni, that's amazing stuff. And wow, were these words said at one of your great events or the Clinton Global Foundation where you speak at the initiative, or where did you write these words before?
Oh, that's a really good question. To be honest with you, I've said that same basic thing kind of over and over again.
That's your mantra. That's your mission.
It's just exciting to me that now I was never the only one doing this. There have been amazing people doing this since before my time, since before I caught on. I had board members that I asked, David Orr, who's at Oberlin College in Oberlin, Ohio, and Tony Cortese of Second Nature, who's up in Boston. these people were doing this long before me and many others, but now it's big. This is so big, and that USGBC is on board, and that we have organizations like National Wildlife Federation that have already been doing this and are doing it even more and even better. This is happening. It's real. And Richard Louv, who wrote Last Child in the Woods, if you're at all familiar with that book, you know why I'm like, I tell everybody they have to read it. If you haven't read it, you have to get a copy and share it with everybody you know. It's pretty much, it just tells us we have lost our connection to the things that we need to survive. And we've got to get our kids back outdoors.
Jayni, unfortunately, we're coming to a close here today. We're running a little bit out of time, but if you could just do Mike and I one favor, make us a promise that a year from now or whenever it fits in your schedule, that you'll come back on and talk about the progress of your initiatives and all that's going on in the green world and your new seat that you're taking on the UGBC and things of that such.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to.
You know, Jayni, you've been honored before by the NRDC, Emma, who's been on the show. The NRDC, we had John and Patricia Adams, and you're truly on their level. You're doing amazing things, and the Rainforest Alliance has honored you. And I know today we didn't have a chance to talk about your funny man husband, Chevy, of course, who's wonderful also in his art. But we just want to say to you this: you are truly a green rock star in our eyes and our listeners' eyes now, and living proof that green is good.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
This program will be available for downloading in a couple of days from our station's website, keyword podcast. Thanks for listening, and join us again next week at the same time for another edition of Green is Good.